This particular lesson, I want to look at the different types of business rules that require us to resort to coding. Inside Sage CRM, we can define rules that perform different types of action. In fact, there's more types than these, but actually these are the type categories that are the main ones we have to consider when implementing business rules inside Sage CRM. And you can see that I've actually divided the rule types into 4 main types: restrictive, corrective, and informative and manipulative. Informative rules are usually coupled with restrictive and corrective rules to inform a user why something has been blocked or why something has happened. And I want to explain each of these in turn. Or rather, I'm going to explain certainly the majority of these types of rules. Now here you can see that I've logged on into Sage CRM, and I'm going to look at a company now. And then you can see that I'm looking at the summary screen for a company called Eurolandia. And I want to show you some restrictive rules that have been implemented in a codeless way. So if I change to edit mode, and I'm going to highlight some fields now, you can see that what I've just done with these 3 fields, I've highlighted fields that demonstrate examples of restrictive rules that have been implemented without any code. Now, as restrictive rules stops a user doing something that would break the system logic or data rules or commercial requirements of the system. Now, if you think of something like the company name, this is required, and you can see that it's actually a mandatory field within the system. You can see the little asterisks by the side of the field. Now, a user cannot save the record without a value in this field, because it doesn't make sense to have a company without a name. The company type field can only contain certain values. That's why it's a drop-down list. Now the field is optional, but if a value is entered here, then it can only be one of the allowed values. So that's restricting the user. And again, you can see that the company account manager is a lookup field. This field isn't mandatory, but if a value is entered here, then it has to match a record in the user table. So this is a form of restriction that is enforcing referential integrity. Now, let's have a look at a rule that has actually been coded. So here I've just clicked on the cases list, and if I switch into one of the cases belonging to Eurolandia, I can switch into edit mode and highlight 2 fields for you here. Neither of these fields are mandatory, but if I put a value in the SLA field, you can see that I've put gold in there, and if I attempt to save this, suddenly I get a message on the screen, and we can see that the system has blocked the commitment of the data into the database. So this is very clearly a restrictive rule, and there's also an informative rule taking place because we've got a message on the screen telling us we've got an issue as well. So this is a restrictive and informative rule. Let's have a look at the administration screen to see how this has been defined. So I've come into administration, I've come into customization, then look at cases, and then into the screens, and then down into the case detail screen. And if I click on the case severity field, we can see that a validate rule has been defined, a validate script has been entered. So this is a coded restrictive rule, and coded restrictive rules are most likely to be implemented as validate rules within screens. But it's not the only way to do this, but it is the main way. Let's have a look at another type of rule, which is a corrective rule. And so if I click on the address tab and then click to edit the address, and you can see that I'm interested in the postcode, and I'm going to enter some new text into this field in mixed case. You can see this. Now if I was to tab off that field, I will trigger the onChange event, and you can see what's happened is that the text has been corrected to be all capitalized. And we can see how this was done as well. We have to go into administration for this, then back into the secondary entity, which is called address, and then down into the address screens, and then into the address box long screen. And the field that I want to show you is, of course, the address postcode field. And we can see that this has an onChange script associated with it. So on-chain scripts I usually use for the definition of corrective rules, but other mechanisms can do that too. And in this case, that didn't have a message. That was a pure corrective rule. And we're going to just remind ourselves about the way in which all rules sit together. So what we've done is we've looked at corrective rules and we've looked at restrictive rules in here. We'll be looking at other types of rules a little bit later on within other lessons.